Welcome on this video, which aims at presenting the main results of the OpenLang Network European project. First of all, some brief information about the OpenLang Network project, which was funded by the Erasmus Plus program in its specific sub-program Cooperation for Innovation and Exchange of Good Practices. The action within the Erasmus Plus program was a strategic partnership for higher education. The complete title of the project is Open European Languages and Cultures Network. The OpenLang Network European project has its own website at www.openlangnet.eu. The OpenLang Network European project addresses the needs for linguistic skills and culture awareness of Erasmus Plus KE1 mobility participants and the training needs for OER's open educational resources by language teachers. Therefore, the target groups of the OpenLang Network project are Erasmus Plus KE1 mobility participants, higher education students and staff, vocational education and training, adult and school education staff, youth learners, youth workers, youth entrepreneurs that need to boost their language skills and culture awareness, including those who will not enroll in the online linguistic support courses. Volunteers language teachers who will support the Erasmus Plus KE1 mobility participants, offering their professional experience while receiving professional certified training on the creation, sharing, and use of language OERs. The objectives of the OpenLang Network European project are: connect both groups in an interactive collaborative environment, web-based and mobile-based, that supports more efficiently their effort to raise language awareness of the target mobility EU languages and to develop European intercultural knowledge covering all European cultures. Foster the open education European multicultural and multilingual vision to all OpenLang Network members. The current video aims at presenting the main results named after intellectual outputs of the OpenLang Network European projects. The intellectual outputs are: Intellectual Output 1, mapping the language learning profile of the Erasmus Plus K1 mobility participants. Intellectual Output 2, OpenLang Network pedagogical and design framework. Intellectual Output 3, online 24 EU language placement tests. Intellectual Output 4, quality framework for language OERs. Intellectual Output 5, EToolkit for open language resources and practices. Intellectual Output 6, development of the OpenLang Network EPlatform. Intellectual Output 7, development of OpenLang Massive Live Open Course. Intellectual Output 10, Learning Analytics Reports. Intellectual Output 11, Sustainability Plan. Let's start with Intellectual Output 1, mapping the language learning profile of the Erasmus Plus KE1 mobility participants. The first intellectual output aims to identify, analyze, and present the language needs of the participants involved in mobility activities supported under the Erasmus Plus KE Action 1. Provide a piece of new knowledge regarding the Erasmus Plus K1 participants' profiles. Emphasize the need for new strategies to facilitate further mobility in the context of Erasmus Plus. Enhance the idea of multilingualism across Europe. The study adopted a mixed research method. In fact, data was collected through a questionnaire distributed online, semi-structured interviews with Erasmus Plus K1 mobility key stakeholders. The questionnaire aims to address the language and cultural needs of the Erasmus Plus mobility participants and to identify their motivations, expectations, and challenges during the mobility. On the other hand, the interviews aim to collect additional information for identifying the linguistic and cultural needs of all the Erasmus Plus participants. As a result, 9 semi-structured interviews with key stakeholders have been conducted, 3 interviews with KA1 national agency officers, and 6 interview sessions with KA1 university officers. Let's focus on the results of the online questionnaire. Demographic: 282 questionnaires were filled in by representatives from 32 different countries. More than half of the participants in the survey were higher education students. Duration: even if the OpenLang network has targeted mostly to long-term participants in mobilities, we have decided to also address the needs of the short-term participants in mobilities because the OpenLang network project could be the starting point of learning the language of the target country. Furthermore, staff usually takes no more than 1 month's mobility, and we wanted to consider this group too. Motivations: focusing on participants' expectations and needs of mobility, the majority of participants chose to be involved in those activities in order to gain an academic, work or study experience in another EU country. Other reasons: to improve their academic or professional qualifications, to improve or gain language skills, to improve or gain language skills for specific purposes. Linguistic challenges. The biggest challenge for participants in Erasmus Plus Mobility is to communicate in everyday instances. Other challenges: the difficulty to understand the academic language and, on the other hand, the difficulty to understand regional dialects. Regarding the participants' learning preferences in an online language learning environment, the higher percentage preferred information to be presented in a visual way using imagery and spatial understanding. A smaller percentage of participants in the survey, 11%, preferred the verbal linguistic way, while only 6% of the participants preferred the interactive way of learning. Let's move to the second part of this intellectual output, the interviews with KA1 mobility key stakeholders. The interview analysis focused on the following themes: linguistic needs of Erasmus participants, cultural needs of Erasmus participants, benefits of the mobility, recommendations for the future. According to the feedback obtained, the linguistic needs of both outcoming and incoming participants is an important factor for effective and successful mobility. Benefits: interviews argued that mobility offers a lot to the participants, enabling them to develop significant academic, social, and personal skills. To summarize up, based on the interview data, interviews discussed the beneficial role of mobility in many sectors and pointed out the following strengths: benefits: developing collaborations, friendship, and networking; adaptability; increasing intercultural communication; improvement of language skills, professional opportunities and communication skills; developing academic competencies. Combining the results of questionnaires and interviews, we found that participants in K1 Erasmus Plus Mobility need linguistic support via training, seminars, or language courses. In addition, based on the findings of the questionnaires, almost all participants, 72%, claimed that they would enjoy the use of an open educational resource in order to enhance their language skills. Intellectual Output 2: OpenLang Network Pedagogical and Design Framework. The main challenges linked to this second intellectual output are design of the OpenLang Network Pedagogical and Design Framework, designing an open language learning environment which could provide multiple types of interaction for the learners. The aim of this second intellectual output is to provide the opportunity to each learner for social interaction, language learning input and output, authenticity, exposure feedback, and learner autonomy, which are the key factors for a successful language learning. The research methodology which has been adopted for this second intellectual output is mainly composed by 3 different steps: literature review, exploring online language education. Overview of existing pedagogical models applied in online language learning and teaching practice, the results from the surveys and interviews which were conducted in the first intellectual output of the project. The result of the three steps is the philosophy behind the design of the OpenLang Network pedagogical framework, a learner-centered social constructivist and connectivism pedagogical paradigm, blending a variety of pedagogical approaches and instructional strategies derived from the areas of computer-assisted language learning, e-learning, second language acquisition, and foreign language learning. The OpenLang Network open and collaborative language learning environment is designed to provide multiple types of interaction to learners who belong in a community of language practice. Each learner of this environment is seen as an autonomous learner who can use the open educational material content, OERs, but also as a learner who can interact with other peers and or the teacher in a one-to-one pair or in small groups or even in a big community. Learners are placed at the center of the OpenLang Network online language learning environment and are free to take their own personalized learning path. Learners can select the mode of interaction and collaboration that they prefer: autonomous, one-to-one, peer-to-peer, one-to-many. Choose among the available tools and services offered by the OpenLang Network platform and control the amount of open material, OERs, they want to use, reuse, share, as well as the duration of time that they need to spend for studying or practices the target language or exploring a new culture. Each learner can practice the language of his/her choice by choosing a language partner such as a peer, a group, or a teacher. A learner in the OpenLang network belongs to a large community and has access to an open forum where he/she can start an interesting discussion about any topic he/she likes. This aspect is very important because the target group of users are Erasmus Plus students who face many challenges and difficulties in every phase of their mobility. Teachers play also a significant role in this network as they can support the community with their contribution either as language partner or as members of the discussion area or as content contributors as they can create, share, evaluate or recommend their language OERs. In general, the learning process is in accordance with the principles of the self-paced, self-regulated learning, autonomous learning, personalized learning, tandem learning, cooperative and collaborative learning, community learning, social constructivism, and connectivism. Intellectual Output 3. Online 24 EU language placement tests. The aim of the Intellectual Output 3 is the identification and selection of open 24 EU language placement tests. One of the most essential services offered to all participants is the possibility to assess their language skills and to determine their language proficiency level by taking an online language placement test of the languages that they prefer among the 24 official European languages. This way, all mobility participants are self-aware of their language status and are better prepared for their mobility experience. Also, the Intellectual Output 3 online 24 EU language placement tests consists of three basic research phases. Phase 1, desk research to explore available language placement tests that are offered for each one of the 24 European languages. Phase 2, evaluation of the available language placement tests based on specific criteria and final selection. Phase 3, availability of the online database with the 24 language placement tests within the OpenLang Network online platform. Phase 1 was based on an extensive desk research to identify all the available online resources for 24 European language placement tests plus direct contact with the national representatives of all 24 languages. As a result, we found some available language placement tests for each European language. The total was 150, taking into account that the language placement tests are available online, are free and openly accessible to everyone. Step 2 was based on a brief overview of the literature regarding the criteria in selecting the language placement tests in the area of foreign language testing and assessment. Considering the needs of the OpenLang Network project, the consortium has decided to use specific evaluation criteria for the selection of the final language placement tests. The criteria were classified into two categories, primary and secondary. A focus group consisting of 8 persons, members of the project partners, made the selection of the 24 final language placement tests to be included in the platform. Primary criteria. The test is provided by an accredited organization for language learning. The test is open and free to use. The test is easy to use. The test is of short duration of time. Secondary criteria, if applicable: authenticity, interactivity, comprehensiveness, completeness. This is the main result of this third intellectual output, as the OpenLang Network platform contains an online database of 24 language placement tests. Intellectual output 4, the OpenLang Quality Framework and Tool for Language, OERs. Let's start with the definition. Open educational resources, OERs, are teaching, learning, and research materials that make use of appropriate tools such as open licensing to permit their free reuse, continuous improvement, and repurposing by others for educational purposes. The quality assurance of OERs via concrete quality objective standards and procedures is very important for creators and users. Even more, the quality of OER is voiced by educators as a significant concern. There are two possible categorizations of quality assurance procedures and models. The top-down quality procedures that includes highly controlled quality assurance models. The bottom-up quality procedures that include contributor user-driven models. Nowadays, it is quite difficult and complicated to find digital learning materials of good quality. How can a teacher evaluate a language OER? Are there specific quality guidelines? In order to reply to those questions, the OpenLang Network Partnership created the fourth intellectual output, the OpenLang Quality Framework and Tool for Language OERs, which aims to provide the opportunity to each language learner and teacher to be able to evaluate efficiently the quality of language OERs in order to use them in their daily learning and teaching practice, facilitate the online evaluation of the OERs by the language teachers who will wish to upload their language OERs to the OpenLang platform. As for the previous intellectual outputs, this fourth intellectual output too was based on 3 different phases, steps: literature review and desktop-based research of OER quality framework, tools and models, design of the OpenLang quality framework for language OERs based on the selected criteria, creation of the OpenLang quality tool for language OERs. The OpenLang quality framework for language OERs was inspired by several frameworks. Its main components emerged by the process of collecting and grouping more than 200 quality assurance criteria proposed by almost 30 quality assurance frameworks and models, mainly for OERs. The outcome of this research process was the development of the OpenLang quality framework for language OERs, which consists of 6 different dimensions: content, pedagogy, design, usability, openness, and technology. And this is the practical application of this intellectual output. As on the OpenLang Network platform, it is possible to access to the recommended language OERs and suggest and share language OERs. Intellectual Output 5, OpenLang EToolkit on language OERs for language teachers and trainers. The aim of this intellectual output is the development of a complete step-by-step guide containing all the core elements for the use, evaluation, creation and sharing of quality multilingual and interactive OERs, open educational resources for language education. Once again, this intellectual output was based on 3 different phases: overview of open educational resources, use, create and share of OERs mapping the existing guidelines, development of a language OERs e-toolkit for language teachers and trainers. Based on the findings of the previous review on OERs, as well as on the quality framework for language OERs, Intellectual Output 4, we developed a step-by-step guide for the use, creation, share of OERs for language materials. This e-toolkit has a concrete structure and combines theory and practice. You will find useful material, specific examples of OERs, useful tips for the creation sharing of language OERs, example of good open educational practices in language education, self-evaluation assessments at the end of each section. At the end of each section, as the e-toolkit is composed by 6 different sections: Introduction to OER and OEP, an overview of existing OERs guidelines, discovering language OERs, evaluating language OERs, using, creating and sharing language OERs, copyright and open licensing, plus the references. Intellectual Output 6, OpenLang Network EPlatform. The result of this activity is a multi-service online platform offering a variety of services: a personal members dashboard, an e-tandem language learning matching service for 24 European languages, an open and highly interactive forum, a European database of language open educational resources of high quality, training MOOC materials on OERs for language teachers, a responsive design accessible through different devices. The platform is based on the following criteria: openness. The platform promotes an open approach for language learning, teaching and community support. Customization. The platform is dynamic and flexible and offers different ways of customization of both its front end and back end. Interoperability. This is achieved by supporting standard specifications for importing and exporting educational data. Mobile interface. Mobility participants do not always have access to a desktop or laptop computer and need to access the platform from different European countries and while traveling. Community support. Receiving support from a community of developers that regularly updates the code bases, thus fixing bugs and security holes, plus delivering new features. In addition to the personal dashboards, within the OpenLang Network platform, it will be possible to find courses and activities, the OpenLang Massive Open Online Course, the database of language placement tests, the tandem language learning, the 2 sections addressed to OERs, recommended language OERs and suggest and share language OERs, plus the community discussion. Even more, it will be possible to follow some suggested pathways if you are a language teacher or if you are a language learner. Intellectual Output 7, OpenLang Massive Open Online Course and e-tandem language learning. Amongst the courses and activities available on the OpenLang Network platform, there is the OpenLang Massive Open Online course. The aim of the course is to learn about the creation, sharing, and use of language open educational resources. The title of the Massive Open Online course is Exploring How to Reuse Language Open Educational Resources in Moodle. Duration 4 weeks. The platform is Moodle. The aim, creation, sharing, and use of multilingual interactive language open educational resources, OERs. Target groups, language teachers, trainers, and learners who wish to explore the use and reuse, creation, and sharing of language OERs. Structure. Each MOOC week is composed by a set of modules, self-reflection activities, one open forum activity with 2 tasks and a final quiz. Certificate, 1 badge for week and a final certificate. In addition to the massive open online course, the OpenLang Network platform offers the possibility for e-tandem language learning. According to Brammertz, when learning a language in tandem, 2 people with different mother tongues work together in order to learn from each other. The e-tandem language learning is based on reciprocity. You exchange the role of the supporter and the learner. Responsibility. You are both responsible of making it work. And autonomy. You are free to choose the topics you will talk about. The steps to be undertaken in order to start the e-tandem language learning on the OpenLang Network platform are the following. First step, record your language proficiency level. Second step, find your e-tandem language partner among those available, taking advantage of the available filters. Step 3, tandem learning activities. Choose your e-tandem activity from a Padlet in order to practice your target language with your e-tandem partner. The collection of e-tandem activities is updated periodically, but users can also suggest their favorite e-tandem activity topics. Step 4. Practice speaking using Skype or Google Meet. Dissemination and exploitation. How the OpenLang Network partners disseminated the project itself and guaranteed its exploitation and sustainability. In order to disseminate the project activities and results, project partners organized multiplier events. Some numbers: 4 multiplier events organized at European level, 8 keynote speakers having their speeches and contributing to the transnational discussion within the OpenLang Network project, 250 registered participants in the multiplier events organized. Amongst the dissemination activities, the OpenLang Network Partnership organized a webinar in the framework of the 2020 edition of the Erasmus Days, 3 days of celebration of the Erasmus Plus program. In order to guarantee the exploitation and the sustainability of the OpenLang Network project, the European project partners were concretely and actively involved together in the following publications: 2 publications in 2020, 4 publications in 2021. Thanks for your attention. Keep on visiting the OpenLang Network website and platform. Bye.